Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Can Aquarius podcast. I'm your girl Jabria, Bree, that dope coach, and I'm here to switch it up from our usual episode structure to a mindful moment. Today's mindful moment is all about a theme that's been coming up pretty loudly for me recently, and that is surrender. And I think it's really fitting for where we are right now, especially in this post-election period when so many of us are focusing on taking care of ourselves, pouring into our communities, but probably feeling a little bit drained, running on E in a lot of ways. So if you're someone who has been conditioned to give, and you're finding it hard to pour back into yourself, this one's for you. Let's talk about why you absolutely deserve to fill up your own cup first, and how doing that lets you actually show up better for everyone else in your community. Surrender has been a big lesson for me lately. It's not about giving up. It's about releasing the need to always be in control, to be on for everyone else, and instead to trust that when we give ourselves care, we're doing something essential, not selfish. I think so many of us, especially us who were AFAB or brought up to believe that the highest form of love is giving everything that we have, even when we're exhausted. But here's the truth. You cannot pour from an empty cup. When I first heard the saying, you have to put on your own oxygen mask first, I used to think that that was really selfish. And I didn't really get it. I'm like, why wouldn't I help the other person first? That's naturally what you're supposed to do, right? It would be selfish and wrong to put on your own oxygen mask first. But after time and a lot of life experiences, I've realized that if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not actually able to show up for others in the way that I want to, in the way that feels good to me. When I'm running on empty, my energy isn't what it could be. So surrendering to that in this case means allowing myself to be cared for, to care for myself, to prioritize myself, to understand that filling my cup is necessary. Putting on the oxygen mask first is necessary. And in the climate that we're living in right now, showing up for ourselves so we can show up for one another has never been more important. Okay, so how do you actually do that, right? We're talking about pouring into our cups. We're talking about filling up ourselves and showing up for ourselves. And even that phrase, self-care, I think a lot of us have been conditioned to think it's a combination of bath bombs and going to the spas and doing skin care masks and things like that, which are all important and definitely forms of self-care, but it's a little bit deeper than that for sure. And so I'll share a few tools that have been really helpful for me and hope that they resonate for you. One of the ways that I personally find to be incredibly grounding is through meditating with cannabis. I use a little bit of CBD, sometimes THC. Actually, for meditations, it's mostly THC. But whatever is feeling right and I have access to in that moment. And I take time to slow down and just be present with myself. Even 5 minutes can make such a huge difference. And as someone with ADHD, it took a long time for me to get into meditation. I used to really struggle, and still sometimes do, to slow my mind down enough to feel like I could get into a meditative trance, so to speak. But what I've learned through my own meditation experience is it doesn't mean that I'm shutting the thoughts off. It means that I am fully grounding myself in being present in the moment and not chasing any of the rabbits that my brain likes to bring up. It's not going down any of the holes. It's not following any of the thoughts. It's just seeing what comes up and letting it pass by. And really grounding myself in my body as a part of that. Cannabis has been the biggest tool for me to do that. I think a lot of us are gardening. I say gardening because I'm so used to saying that on social media. But a lot of us are using cannabis as a way to manage our mental health. And when paired with intentional mindfulness, it can be incredibly powerful. Something else that I've been doing recently that I think I've talked about on the podcast before is I've started microdosing psilocybin mushrooms as a part of my routine. If you guys remember back in July of this past year, my mental health took one of the biggest dips it's taken in a few years. And I think that was a combination of late stage processing a breakup, and there were a lot of things that were changing in my professional life and my living situation. Like, I just had a lot going on, right? And I think, we don't always know our mental health dips, but I took a massive mental health dip in July. And so in August, started microdosing mushrooms to kind of bring myself back out of that and provide more support tools. This is definitely something that's been new for me, but it has honestly been one of the most game-changing tools that I've implemented in my toolbox. It's been amazing at easing my anxiety, but also really tackling my depression. It also helps me just have better perspective and insight into what I'm experiencing. Like I said, I have ADHD and I tend to get really overwhelmed with big picture tasks. And as someone who's running her own business, I'm dealing with a lot of big picture tasks here, where I am not only the one who has to come up with the ideas, I'm the one that has to implement them and figure out how and when, and all of the details can make me feel really overwhelmed. And since I've introduced shrooms into my routine, I don't get drowned by that overwhelm in the same way I used to. It's been an incredibly supportive tool for my mental health in general, and also just in a mindfulness way. It's allowing me to be more present. And I think it works really synergistically well with cannabis. It's truly been a game changer for me in terms of resetting and gaining perspective. The last thing I want to talk about is really building up your own self-care kit. Take a minute to really think about what goes into your self-care. What actually makes you feel cared for. Maybe for you, it is the spa days and the skincare baths, and the skincare and the baths. Maybe it is reading a book. Maybe it's a nap. Maybe it's resting. Another reminder that rest is resistance, and I mean that in every way. I really encourage you all to take this time to figure out what makes you feel poured into and what starts to actually fill up your cup. Sometimes we think it's one thing, but if we're honest, it's something else. Is it movement? Is it rest? Creative expression? Connection with others? Take stock of what genuinely nourishes you, and don't be afraid to let go of things that don't serve you. I've got a few thought prompts to help you do this, and I encourage you to write these down or just take a few minutes to reflect on them later. But what does my cup look like right now? Is it empty? Is it half empty? Is it full? What does filling up your cup look like? What is one small way I can prioritize myself this week? Hell, what is one small way I can prioritize myself today? Are there any patterns of overgiving that I can release to create more balance? How does showing up for myself let me show up for others in a way that actually feels good? Remember, there is no right answer, and these thought prompts are just here to help you explore what resonates with you. Now is really the time to surrender to what we need, to what allows us to live well and to really show up for ourselves and for others. That is what's most important right now. I hope this mindful moment reminds you that you deserve all the care and love that you give to others, and that taking care of yourself is one of the most powerful ways you can show up for community. And community is everything, especially right now. If you try any of these practices, or if anything resonates, I'd love to hear from you. Definitely like, comment, subscribe, but make sure you leave a comment below to let us know how this sat with you and if you took anything from it. Remember that surrendering isn't about letting go of your power. It's about stepping into it. Thanks for listening, and stay well, fam. And always remember to puff with pride.
Puff with